Welcome to Heck of a Podcast, the Middle Edition. I am Tasha Kay, your host, and I'm so excited to start this podcast and share about the best family sitcom ever created, The Middle. I love TV shows and I love listening to rewatch podcasts, and so I wanted to start one of my own about my favorite TV series. So let's watch or rewatch this show together because it's great. Right now, you can find The Middle streaming on Peacock. It used to be on Max, but now it's on Peacock. And I think it's also on Freevee, which is viewable through Amazon Prime. So just a little bit about me. I am a 44-year-old mother of three. I have been married for 22 years. I have my own online business working at home, proofreading legal transcripts, and I've been doing that for about 20 years. I love theme parks and national parks. My favorites are Disneyland, Universal Studios, Orlando, and Yellowstone. And I love the 22-minute sitcom format, and I'm hoping it doesn't become extinct. I'm a busy working mom, and I usually don't have the time on a weekday night to sit through a 42-minute show or a whole movie, and I need a 22-minute show to decompress. So I often spend my time watching older off-the-air sitcoms. Some of my other favorite TV shows include Seinfeld, Simpsons, 30 Rock, Arrested Development, Modern Family, The Office, Big Bang Theory, and King of Queens. I think all these shows are super funny, but they are not really realistic or true to life for me, and probably not for you either. I'm able to relate somewhat to Big Bang Theory because there are a couple of Sheldons in my life, and King of Queens because I'm married to a man. But they still have some fairly ridiculous characters and plot lines. And none of these comedies are told mainly through the eyes of a wife and mother. Not sure why this seems to be such a rare occurrence, but it is. This is another reason why I love The Middle. It's relatable. But best of all about The Middle, it's funny, with no forced laugh track. And I know it's not just me who is still watching reruns of The Middle. Other women in my life also love The Middle and rewatch it on a regular basis. My mother, my 4 sisters, my cousins, and even my 20-year-old daughter. It is one of her favorite shows to watch. And let's be honest, there's not a whole lot of watchable sitcoms airing right now. Another big plus with The Middle is that it is clean enough to watch in front of my kids. TV shows that are appropriate to watch in front of children that adults also find entertaining, that's a rare gem. Even back in 2012, Brian Boone from Vulture called The Middle probably the only family-friendly comedy on network TV, by which I mean it's funny and smart enough for adults, but the plot lines are relatable to kids too. Most network sitcoms, he wrote, are a little too racy for kids. The main thing that sets The Middle apart from other sitcoms is how it captures the essence of middle-class family life while being funny and authentic. It really is a slice of life kind of TV show. It portrays the challenges and joys of raising a family, but you're still worrying about making ends meet. The Hecks face the same daily obstacles that many of us do. So let's talk about the stars and characters of The Middle. The Middle stars Patricia Heaton. If you've never seen The Middle, you may know Heaton from the very popular Everybody Loves Raymond, where she co-starred as Deborah Barone, wife of Ray Barone. For her role in Everybody Loves Raymond, Heaton received 7 nominations for Primetime Emmy Award for Outstanding Lead Actress in a Comedy Series, and then she won the award in 2000 and 2001. Everybody Loves Raymond ended in 2005. The Middle started up a few years later and ran from 2009 to 2018. Patricia Heaton's character is the star of the show. She plays Frances Frankie Heck, mother of 3 and wife to Mike. Frankie is an always tired, usually frazzled, working mother, sometimes disappointed, but mostly happy with her life. And she finds joy in her kids, her husband, and community, and she finds entertainment in watching shows like The Bachelor and Say Yes to the Dress. It's her relatable charm and down-to-earth nature that make Frankie such an endearing character for me. She reminds us that moms are real people too, and we aren't perfect. Sometimes, after a long day of working and taking care of other people, we just want to take off our bra in the living room and watch some trash TV. The Middle also stars Neil Flynn, who plays husband and father Mike Heck. Before The Middle, I always knew Neil Flynn as the janitor from Scrubs, which he was brilliant in, just great. But now he's etched forever in my mind as Mike Heck. The things he says, the way he lives his life and takes care of his family really remind me of the good, hardworking, steady, obtuse, mildly flawed men I've known in my life. Bob Sasson wrote an article for Esquire.com in May of 2016 titled, "The Middle is the best TV show you're not watching." And he says, Are there more believable parents on a comedy right now? One of the strengths of the show is how they play off of each other. It would have been easy to write both of them as off the wall or even more cliched, make the husband the dumb, beer drinking one and the wife the calm, reasonable one. But Frankie is actually the one who is often frazzled in her attempts to get the kids off to school, make it to work on time, and keep the house together. Sure, Mike would rather watch football than talk about feelings, but he's the pragmatic one who often has to talk Frankie down from her latest worry. Flynn is simply fantastic as usual, and Heaton could have just copied Deb from Everybody Loves Raymond, but excels as a whole new character here. This is a comedy with a beautiful mixture of sharp humor and heart. So just as an aside, I know I'm definitely in the minority here, but I really did not like the Deborah character on Everybody Loves Raymond. And she's the main reason I never watched that show, that television series. She just seemed to be always mad and annoyed, and that was like her whole personality. But I love the character of Frankie. Then we have Charlie McDermott, who plays the oldest son, Axel. The only thing I've seen him on before is The Office. He has about a 2-second, pretty funny speaking role on Job Fair, where he plays a Scranton high schooler. Axel is your typical teenage boy. He plays football and basketball, has lots of friends, walks around the house in his boxers, and is generally annoyed by everything his family does. Eden Scher plays the only daughter and middle child, Sue. Sue is endlessly optimistic and enthusiastic, and despite her best efforts, she always seems to be falling short of her goals. But she is happy and cheerful through her difficulties and is an all-around good and kind human being. Atticus Schaefer plays the youngest, Brick, who prefers reading books over pretty much everything else in life and has many quirks and socially awkward tendencies, like whispering to himself. But Rick really is an insightful and interesting character. In fact, all the kids are interesting characters. Axel seems more of a regular TV teenager, but he does have some occasional heartfelt insights. And Sue and Brick are personality types that we haven't seen much before in the overly cliche families of TV and movies. I'm going to quote again from the Bob Sasson article. It says, "These kids aren't just cute or good reactors the way that a lot of kids are in sitcoms. These kids are actually good actors. They don't simply inhabit their characters, but rather they devour them. And it's a rare show in which you can't imagine any other kids in the roles. They bring these characters to life." And they really are truly amazing actors. You will appreciate them more and more throughout the series. Other recognizable and wonderful actors with recurring roles on the middle include Brian Doyle Murray, Jack McBrayer, Chris Kattan, Brooke Shields, and the late greats Norm Macdonald, Jerry Van Dyke, and Francis Bay. Notable guest stars throughout the series include French Stewart, who I heard Eden Scher talk about in a recent TikTok where she shared that he was a very kind and funny person, Ray Romano, Jane Kasmerick, Rachel Dratch, Molly Shannon, Doris Roberts, Whoopi Goldberg, Ed Asner, David Koechner, Richard Kind, Nicole Sullivan, Phyllis Smith, Kirstie Alley, Cheryl Hines, Dick Van Dyke, and many more. They were able to get some amazing guest stars for this television series. And then you will come to love the many recurring characters on the middle that make it feel like a real community. Some of my favorites include Paul Hipp as Reverend Tim Tom, Brock Chiarelli as Brad Bodig, Jen Ray as Nancy Donahue, and Bo Ryrick and John Gammon, who play Axel's friends Sean and Darren. Speaking of community, let's talk about another main character of the show, the town of Orson, Indiana. The series creators were raised in the Midwest and wanted to celebrate the heartland and honor the people that they have known there. Creator Deanne Helene said Indiana was a perfect choice for the show. Quote, "The location of the show, it's a character for us. Eileen and I were nostalgic for the Midwest. I was in Indiana in December to visit family, and I went to the grocery store, and people say hello, even if they don't know you. The people are so nice." Orson, Indiana, the fictitious setting for the middle, is loosely based on Jasper, Indiana, which was going to be the setting until studio attorneys decided against it. And whether you're part of a middle-class family or simply enjoy good, honest humor, The Middle is a series that will truly resonate with you, reminding us all that the journey through middle-class America is both comical and touching. And then let me add one more thing from the Bob Sasson article, because I just can't sum up The Middle any better myself. And if you want to read the whole thing, I will link it in the podcast show notes. Bob writes, "I think we can all agree on what the best TV comedies of all time are. While we might rank them a bit differently, any list we each came up with would include classic shows that define the format, like I Love Lucy, The Dick Van Dyke Show, and The Mary Tyler Moore Show. Cheers, which solidified the workplace comedy, and ultimately inspired later fare like News Radio, The Office, and 30 Rock, the latter of which skewed the genre with an absurdist bent. And of course, 90s staples like Seinfeld and Friends. That best of list now has to also include the middle. When most of the other current sitcoms are forgotten or grow to look dated and gimmicky, it's the one show we'll look back at and smile and say, wow, that was a great show, wasn't it? I'm happy it exists in my life. And I feel the exact same way. So right now we'll take a quick break and then we'll jump into Season 1, Episode 1, the pilot.
How does tirzepatide work to help patients with an amazing average weight loss of 20%? A breakthrough prescription medicine, tirzepatide helps with blood sugar control, setting itself apart as a potent GLP-1 receptor agonist medicine. It's more than just a diabetes drug. Tirzepatide is also a weight loss champion. Its unique formula combines a glucagon-like peptide-1 receptor agonist with a glucose-dependent insulinotropic polypeptide to reduce blood glucose and weight. This masterful fusion results in a significant drop in glycated hemoglobin and weight, with an average weight loss of 20%. To discover if tirzepatide is the right choice for you, visit regenix.com for a complimentary consultation. Don't forget to use coupon code TASHA10 for a 10% discount. Welcome to the future of healthy weight loss.
Okay, so let's dive into Season 1, Episode 1, Pilot. The pilot aired on September 30th, 2009 on ABC. Here is the IMDb episode description. Sue tries out for show choir with disastrous results. Frankie desperately tries to close a sale with disastrous results. Brick has trouble relating to his teacher with odd results. The pilot was directed by Julianne Robinson, and as of this podcast recording, Julianne Robinson has directed about 50 episodes of TV series, including The Good Place, Brooklyn Nine-Nine, Parks and Rec, Nurse Jackie, and Grey's Anatomy, and she's going to direct one other episode of The Middle in the 5th season. The pilot was written by Eileen Heisler and Deanne Helene, who are also the series' creators, producers, and showrunners. Eileen Heisler was born in 1965 in Chicago, Illinois. Deanne Helene was born in 1965 in Cincinnati, Ohio. So we have some Midwest upbringing here. Eileen and Deanne met at Indiana University, where Eileen majored in music and Deanne majored in telecommunications. They have worked together as writers on shows like Doogie Howser, Roseanne, Murphy Brown, and How I Met Your Mother. Also, these two women are credited with being executive producers and showrunners for the entire 215 episodes of the series. It's my opinion that they are the reason that the show's quality continued throughout all 9 seasons. On most shows, there seems to be just a huge dip in quality after the 4th or so season when original writers, producers, creators move on to different projects. The Office. But The Middle was able to keep its quality and continuity throughout all 9 seasons. As you watch the series, you will be able to tell that it was created and written by women with life experience, not some recent Harvard graduates who've never been married or had kids or had a job or lived life in the real world, which is where a lot of TV shows get their writers. When Eileen and Deanne were asked to pitch and write a TV series for Warner Brothers, they wanted to write what they knew, and both of them were tired moms, originally from the Midwest. They had written for Roseanne and really enjoyed that, and wanted a family show written from the mother's point of view. This is how The Middle came into existence. So in preparation for this podcast, I have seen lots of interviews of Eileen and Deanne, and they seem to be funny, down-to-earth women that I would definitely want to be friends with in real life. So the episode starts out with Frankie standing in the middle of a road with cornfields on each side in a sort of generic red and blue superhero costume, holding her cell phone up in the air, trying to get reception. Do people still hold their phones up in the air to get better reception? And did it help even with flip phones? I'm not sure. So the opening sequence was filmed in Oxnard, California, which is known for its agriculture, and it grows produce like avocados, lemons, celery, onions, strawberries, those sort of things. But not corn. The corn rows were added digitally, and now that I know that, I can't unsee it. So then we hear Frankie's monologue describing where she lives, in the middle of the U.S., in Orson, Indiana, home of Little Betty snack cakes and the world's largest polyurethane cow, both of which will come back numerous times throughout the show's run. So how did she end up in the middle of the road in that getup? Well, it started a couple weeks ago. Then we jump back A couple of weeks where Frankie is at home getting her kids ready for school. Non-linear storytelling is not my favorite device, but it works well for this pilot as a way to grab the audience's attention and introduce the main characters of the show. So Frankie is microwaving some frozen pancakes for breakfast and trying to get the kids out the door for school. We are introduced to Brick as he's cleaning out his gross backpack while Frankie gives him some advice to get through school that day. Brick sweetly tells her, "You know you're my hero, right?" And Frankie quickly says, "Thank you, honey," and continues with what she's doing. Now, if you are an avid watcher of The Middle, you'll notice that in the pilot, their house is arranged slightly differently, so it's a little off-putting as you're watching them interact in the house. But don't worry, everything will be back to normal in the next episode. Another difference is in the way it's shot. It seems much more in the style of Malcolm in the Middle than The Middle. Lots of close-ups and smash cuts. I'm not a fan of this style. But that also will be mellowed out, and there will be a more traditional filming style in the next episodes. So next we are introduced to Axel, who's walking around in his boxers, eating breakfast, making rude comments. One of my favorite lines of the episode is when Frankie says to Axel, "I can't hear you if you don't have pants on." Frankie is going through the mail and opens up the envelope containing her new driver's license. And if you pause, you can see that her license says Frankie Heck, 427 Birchwood Avenue, Orson, Indiana, 46213. Her date of birth is November 14th, 1966, which would make her 42 or 43 at the time of this episode. She's 5'2", weighs 110 pounds, okay, and has brown hair and brown eyes. Frankie gasps at her picture and says, "When did this happen?" And then Mike walks into the kitchen and she gets him to look at the old and new driver's licenses. And we're going to listen to this part of the show because I want you to hear the panic in Frankie's voice.
Aha! Okay. When did this happen? Mike, look at this. Look at this. I haven't had my driver's license picture taken in 7 years. Okay, Here's the old one. Look at this. What happened to me?
Well, back then you're all young and shiny and wondering what your life's going to be. And now, well, now you know.
So if I had to come up with a title for this episode, it would be When Did This Happen? Or When Did I Stop Being Young and Shiny? This is the theme throughout the episode. So next we are introduced to hopeful, upbeat, awkward Sue, who announces that she is trying out for show choir this week. Even in the pilot, Sue has a long history of trying out for activities and not making it, which will continue for several seasons. The kids and parents head out to school and work. Frankie works as a salesperson at a used car dealership, and Mike works as a manager at the quarry. At the dealership, we are introduced to Mr. Elert, the owner of the car dealership, played by Brian Doyle Murray, Bill Murray's brother and the mayor from Groundhog Day. And Frankie's coworker and friend, Bob, played by Chris Kattan. Frankie is not great at her job, hasn't sold a car, and isn't earning very much. And so she gets a talking to from Mr. Elert. We see Frankie trying to sell cars at work, but constantly being interrupted by phone calls from her family and her kids' schools. Oh, and by the way, the parking lot intercom voice that tells Frankie who's calling her isn't credited, but it's played by Bob Clendenin, another veteran actor. He's not in the credits, but you should recognize his voice, and you would definitely recognize him if you saw him. He had a recurring role on Cougar Town, another of my favorite shows, as neighbor Dr. Tom. He has over 130 acting credits, including Scrubs, same series as Neil Flynn. He's been in My Name is Earl, Will and Grace, That 70s Show, Third Rock from the Sun, Gilmore Girls, and most recently Bookie. Just the other day, I was rewatching the 2009 Star Trek starring Chris Pine, and Bob just pops up in that for a couple of lines. Chris Pine tosses him the keys to his motorcycle right before Chris, as James T. Kirk, gets onto the transport, taking him to Starfleet Academy. And I yelled at the screen, "It's Dr. Tom!" And my kids looked at me like I was a weirdo, but yeah. Anyway, I think Bob is great, and he's so funny. So Frankie learns that Brick needs to be picked up from school. She takes a customer on a test drive over to the school to get Brick. When they get home, Brick says, "At least you're still my hero." And Frankie says, "Thanks, pal." The family has a fast food dinner together while watching Dancing with the Stars. But before it starts, they talk about their day. Sue talks about trying out for show choir, and Brooke tells them his teacher wants to meet with them on Monday. After dinner, Frankie and Mike are sitting in the backyard together. Sue comes out and expresses concern about trying out for show choir, and Frankie thinks, of course you shouldn't. Show choir is a big deal here. But then she looks at her shiny young daughter who's yet to be beaten down by the world and tells her to go for it. The next scene, Mike and Frankie are meeting with Brick's teacher, Mrs. Reddig, played by Patricia Belcher, another veteran TV actor that you may have seen before in Bones, Good Luck Charlie, and dozens of other TV shows. She is known for her deadpan delivery of lines, and she does not disappoint here. She's telling Frankie and Mike that Brick is quirky. He's a very bright boy, but could benefit from some formal testing. And Frankie and Mike say, "Oh, thanks for your concern, but he doesn't need anything special." Then Mrs. Reddick says, "His best friend is his backpack." And then Mike says, well, he hopes Brick is quirky enough to be covered by their health insurance. In the next scene, Frankie is back at work trying to sell a car. She gets another phone call from home telling her she needs to go back and pick up Brick from school because Axel is in trouble. Frankie is flustered and angry, but the customer says, "I can come back another day. I'm a mom too. I know what it's like." So Frankie hugs her and runs off. At home, Frankie finds out that Axel is suspended from football for 3 games because he called his coach a moron. Mike and Frankie are not happy and send Axel to his room, or Sue's room, because Axel likes his room. Brick walks into the kitchen. "Mom, you're my hero," he says. "That's nice, honey, but we're trying to think up a good punishment for your brother. You'll need a costume." Brick is doing a book report on Superwoman and needs Frankie to come to school dressed as Superwoman as part of his project. Frankie tells him, "You've got to tell me these things earlier." "I did. I've been telling you all week. You're my hero. Didn't you listen?" He says whatever and storms off. Frankie feels guilty, but Mike tells her she's a great mom. Sue bursts into the room and tells her parents she has made it into show choir. She is so excited, and Frankie and Mike are so happy. Sue is ecstatic that she's going to be busy. The next scene shows the Hecks throwing a party for Sue for getting into show choir. We meet Aunt Edie and Aunt Ginny for the first time. Aunt Edie is played by Jeanette Miller, who has been on several TV shows since the 1950s, including Designing Women, Friends, Night Court, and Scrubs. Aunt Ginny is played by Frances Bay, who I know as Adam Sandler's grandma in Happy Gilmore. So Frankie's aunts are there, along with Bob and about 20 other people we never see again. But the above-ground pool does make its first appearance, and we will see it many times throughout the series. They end the party with watching Extreme Makeover Home Edition, which I used to watch with my family on Sunday nights too. Good times. The next scene, the Heck family arrives at the first show choir performance, excited to see Sue. But after a while, they see that Sue is not in the actual show choir, but on the crew. They realize, however, that Sue is still very happy, so they wave and take pictures. This distracts Sue, who is supposed to be placing a box on the stage for one of the show choir girls to step on. The girl instead falls flat on her face and causes a TV show type of unrealistic chain reaction where, by the end, everyone has fallen over, including set pieces. In the next scene, Frankie's waking up, telling us, "No wonder my face looks the way it does," and that Sue got kicked out of the show choir crew. Brick is reminding Frankie that she is his superhero today and she needs to come to school. Frankie arrives at school in her superhero outfit and says, "Superwoman is here!" Then Mrs. Reddick says, "Oh, that's next week." Feeling somewhat defeated, Frankie goes back to work wearing her superhero outfit. And the woman who said she'd come back is there. Frankie believes her to be a sympathetic fellow mom and takes her on a test drive in a yellow convertible. While driving on a road through a cornfield, whooping and yelling, with Frankie standing up and enjoying herself, the woman asks Frankie to get out of the car to check something. And then the woman speeds away, deserting Frankie. So we are back to where we started, with Frankie abandoned on the road. Out of desperation, she eats her ran-over Little Betty snack cake, which, by the way, is my daughter's favorite part of the whole pilot. That cell phone must have worked eventually because her family pulls up in Frankie's Dodge Neon to save her. And she's so happy to see them. And Mike does that funny thing that men think is hilarious where he drives a foot away every time she tries to get in the car. Finally, Frankie gets in the car, Axel hands her a bag of fast food and says they made dinner. Frankie is happy to be rescued and content with her family in this moment. Frankie says, "Back then, on the old license, I didn't know what my life was going to be. And Mike's right. Now I know. This is my life. It's not going to be in People magazine or anything, but you know what? I got it good." The show ends with a shot of the car driving down the road with digital cornfields on each side and a plane flying overhead. And that is the end of the episode. It is such a good episode for a pilot, and it only gets better from here, people. Oh, and I wanted to mention that there was another pilot shot for the middle a year or two before this one, starring Ricky Lake. It's basically the same storyline, but different actors. The only actor that stays the same is Brick. I definitely prefer the Patricia Heaton version because I prefer the cast, but Ricky Lake is pretty good too. And you can find that pilot with a search on YouTube. Eden Scher recently mentioned in one of her TikToks that she did audition for the first pilot but didn't get hired. And then she was called back when they were going to reshoot the pilot the second time. So Eden says she auditioned to be Sue 7 times before they told her she had the part. So she's a great storyteller, so I will link the TikTok video in the podcast notes so you can see it firsthand. Next time will be Season 1, Episode 2, The Cheerleader. If you have any questions or comments or catches about the Cheerleader episode or any upcoming episodes in Season 1 of The Middle, please email me at middlepod@yahoo.com. I would love to hear from you. And I will also put the email address in the podcast show notes. I have really enjoyed preparing this episode of the podcast, and I'm so excited to go through the rest of The Middle with you. I've watched each season multiple times, and in my research, I found so many interesting tidbits and surprising things for upcoming episodes. So please subscribe and download so you don't miss a thing. Thanks for listening.
Are you on a quest for a healthier you? Meet tirzepatide, your new secret weapon in the battle against weight loss. Here are the top 3 reasons why it's the game changer you've been waiting for. 1. Tirzepatide is not just another weight loss drug. It's a dual GIP and GLP-1 receptor agonist, designed to control your appetite and increase your body's insulin production. 2. Clinical trials have shown impressive results. Participants reported significant weight loss, up to 20% of their body weight, improved blood sugar levels, and a reduction in risk factors related to heart disease. 3. It's a once-weekly injection, making it a convenient addition to your routine, especially for those with busy schedules. Ready to take control of your health? Visit Regenix.com today to schedule your free telehealth consultation. No insurance required. And don't forget to use code TASHA10 to save 10%. Because at Regenix, we believe in a modern approach to health, tailored to you.